Welcome to the Family Office, planning for the people who matter most.
What do you think, Len, about, just in keeping in the in this wheelhouse, and then we can move on. But another thing, because it just seemed like it all happened in one spot or one time, was also, and I think this is huge. This is huge, and there's a lot of controversy, but there's a lot of back and forth on it. Where you stand on the birthright citizenship ruling?
So I think
because that's pretty big.
Yeah, it is. It is. So when I look at birthright citizenship, I look at it through the lens of the history of it and the purpose of it. So, and then also I look at it through the lens of what are we talking about with presidential power? So the first thing is the historical lens. Birthright citizenship really came as a result of the 14th Amendment. And the 14th Amendment, the spirit in which the 14th Amendment was created was through slavery. And so the reason why the 14th Amendment was necessary is that people of African descent were essentially relegated to second and third class citizens perpetually because of that. And so the 14th Amendment came to change and
almost
eradicate
like a caste system.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that funny how people always try to get back to that? Socialism and communism. Sorry, go ahead. Len.
Yeah, and so essentially what happened is the 14th Amendment essentially said, and I'm not quoting verbatim. Well, I'll quote it verbatim. It said that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. So the spirit of that was, if you're born here in the United States, you're a citizen, but it's because
the mother country
of the fact,
will take care of you.
Yes. And the spirit of that law made sense. Now, when you look at birthright citizenship, what the president tried to do was to repeal that and say, look, if you are here illegally and you have a child, then those children are not necessarily American citizens anymore. So I think the idea has merit because of the fact that if a parent comes illegally, they shouldn't be able to have their children reap the benefits of it from a purely theoretical standpoint. But when you add historical context, then it changes meaning. And I'll make this last point and I'll turn it over to you to get your perspective. See, the president cannot unilaterally make changes to the Constitution and through executive order. He can't do that. So that's a extension of his power. And so I'm glad that the courts decided to not allow that to happen, because that would have just created precedents for so many other historical implications. What's your perspective about it?
I think there's a lot going on with it, and
yeah, that's why it's so explosive.
I think there's a lot going on with it. I mean, first and foremost, I do agree with the ruling in that I do, because the natural consensus or the natural ideal of America is that, and if you even look at Christianity, is you can't be held accountable for the sins of your parents, right? Yeah. And so that's the old world. Right. That's communist countries, socialist countries, dictatorships, monarchies, the rest of the world pretty much. Because the rest of the world just uses Frankenstein, capitalism where they want to see fit.
Did you know in North Korea, just a real quick point and I'll let you go back. There was a person I just learned about from North Korea. What he shared is that if your parents are like a political prisoner, your family stays political prisoners for 3 generations.
Ooh, baby, that must warm the heart. That must warm the heart of all the people that follow Mandami and think he's cool.
3 generations, bro. Oh my!
I mean, you know, he's a communist, right? I mean, people just say socialism because it sounds nicer. right? It's like saying, instead of you saying you're a trash man, you're a refuse collector, right?
I still say that he's a democratic socialist. However,
Len, that's propaganda.
Socialism is a problem in and of itself, and communism. So they're two peas in a pod to me. But we can talk a little bit more about that because I have some thoughts about that.
I think that when you say he's a democratic socialist, I think that's propaganda. To me, it sounds like propaganda. Whenever you try to have to keep giving two labels to something, like it's like democratic socialist, that's propaganda because you're trying to beautify something that's innately ugly. Okay,
so I can agree with that.
But he's a communist. I mean, it is what it is. These communists always pop their heads up. It's like communists are like orbiters. If you know what I'm talking about.
He's not a communist. He's definitely. I will give you. He definitely is a socialist.
A state-run grocery store is communism, Len.
Okay, I don't think that's going to happen.
But he wants to. Rent control is communism. Because if they don't abide by the rule, they're going to confiscate. Yeah, but here's the thing: if they don't abide by the rent control, he's going to take their buildings.
No, he can't do that. He can't do that. Okay, go ahead.
We could go to that part anyways. But so here's the thing: if you're here illegally and you have a child, that child, should not be held accountable for. It's a U.S. citizen. They don't know. It's just like the abortion thing. Right? Mm-hmm. Like that child doesn't know that it's father. And I don't want to even touch that conversation right now. But again,
I know where you're going. Yes.
Look, that child didn't know. Like in the case of the extreme circumstances, like, hey, I was essayed, right? Or whatever that word is with the R. Mm-hmm. That child doesn't know that.
Right. Yes.
That child doesn't know that. So see, the innocence of that child, I think, so it needs to be protected, just like the level of the innocence here of that child needs to be protected, because I feel it's the same argument as and I don't care if somebody, it's more extreme. It is. That child is innocent in that womb, and that child that's born here from people who broke the law to be here is also innocent. Mm-hmm. That child's innocent. So I look at it that way.
Mm-hmm. But I have a statistic for you, but go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, what I do look at it also on the other side of it is I understand why Trump would do what he wanted to do. Now, I don't think that he thought it was going to go through. The legal lens of it and the legal sewing the needle through the head is very fascinating because, and I don't want to lose this point, it's fascinating because if you look at it, man, I lost the point. I want to come back to it. I freaking lost it. It's so fascinating because there is a very good legal challenge, I think, to it. I got it back. Okay. For example, if you get evidence in a criminal case or there's evidence in a case and that evidence comes from someone who's compromised, right? And you have a bunch of evidence. And let's say a lot of that evidence is true, right? Mm-hmm. Like, for example, it's factually, Len. You can factually prove that the evidence from source A is true. Mm-hmm. But then there's this landmark piece of evidence that you get from source A, and that landmark piece of evidence is found to be corrupt or found to not be legitimate. There's a saying that would then say in court that all that evidence would be considered fruit from the poisonous tree, and would be inexcusable, right? Mm-hmm. So I get why inadmissible. So I get why Trump could show a legal argument there, because you could be like, hey, look, anything that comes from these bad actors is illegal. I mean, an illegal offense created an opportunity, and here's where it boils down to. And this is what sucks. When you operate in a system like we have in America, and we're seeing this with the fraud. Otherwise, I mean, there's fraud everywhere in the world, but there's a lot of fraud in America where it's not outward fraud. It's taking advantage of the systems, right? It's gaming the systems. Mm-hmm. And the problem with the birthright right in America is that it's a loophole. Again, it's a loophole for people that are bad actors from governments that are bad. Constructs like socialism, communism, dictatorships, authoritarian, because those types of systems can go in and operate covertly inside a system like ours and take advantage of those. And that's where a lot of critics say, what about all these people that are never going to be loyal to America that come here, have kids, and then leave? And now those kids are citizens, which means those kids can vote. Those kids, and you don't know, and those kids, like you've seen, that's why I brought up that movie earlier, Not Without My Daughter, those kids can be brought up to have whatever opinions they want in a controlled government like the CCP or Russia or Iran or North Korea. So you see how that can circumvent. So I think Trump pushed it because Trump makes things move. He's a market maker. I think Trump's ultimate goal was to push it to make Congress really needs to look at this. And this is where I don't think it's the job of the president to make these changes. This is where it comes down to what you and I have said for a long time is our elected officials are too worried about transgender bathrooms, and they're not worried about protecting this country so that you can even fight or argue about transgender bathrooms. The fact that we have time to argue about transgender bathrooms and tampons in boys' bathrooms and all the other weird stuff in boys' sports and girls' sports tells you that we have enough resources in this country to really fix the real problems, like bad drinking water in Flint, Michigan, which is still dirty. Or the fact that there's rotting pig flesh 30 minutes down the road from you. Still. And the fact that an oil spill happened 2 weeks before that. And the fact that there's billions of gallons of raw sewage being pumped into San Diego coastline beaches from Tijuana. Still. And the fact that $200 billion is missing in California. Still. And the fact that the average CEO of a nonprofit NGO in California is $800,000. Still. So when you look at that, to me, it goes, we definitely have too much time on our hands because you know, and I know, that if there is a problem in your house, you don't have the bandwidth to deal with that type of that with all the you don't have the time to deal with the color of the wallpaper in the bathroom if the garage door is broken.
No, I agree.
And right now, our garage door is broken, our moat is running dry, and the drawbridge is down. And the chains where the little gate thing that goes down to, those are broken. And all we care about is the fact that the flowers are not gender neutral on the way up to the castle.
Yeah, it's a very intriguing argument because talk about keep making the main thing the main thing.
Yes.
And I think what happens is a lot of politicians want to make something other than the main thing to distract you from what's really happening. And both sides are guilty just in different ways. And I think at the end of the day, we've talked about this many, many times, is that the country is not ruled by the people. That is a fallacy. We are a republic. Definitely, indeed. We definitely have rights at the polls that we can execute, but the ruling class are the tech folks and also the lobbyists. And so when finances are at the foundation of it, and I think there needs to be some type of campaign finance reform, because I think at the heart of it, how people get in office and how long they stay in office and what they have to do in order to get in office all matter. And I think if we change that, I think the entire system begins to change, because we are supposed to be a land of rule and law. And if we change how that is exercised by the people who get elected to these offices to actually represent the people and their wishes, I think things will begin to change. But unfortunately, the system isn't designed that way. So the wrong people get into office and then they commit fraud.
Yeah. I mean, a great way to figure that out, Len, is again, we have so much creative time and energy. And if all of these politicians, especially the ones that are the loudest, and you know what I'm talking about, I don't want to mention the names today, but those ones that are always the loudest about what's going on, and they're usually on the left side of things, great. Then let's go down to the Congressional Hall, whatever that building's called, the Capitol building, that big, beautiful building that is so cool and nice that no one's allowed to go in. I mean, unless you have a tour, I guess, right? Or whatever. And you work there as a congressperson or Senate, and it's beautiful and it's protected and it's clean and it's pristine, and you have lunch and you have all these accoutrements that make your life so comfortable. Then go in there and figure out how to eliminate the ability for people to be career politicians. Like, for example,
so you want them to coalesce and create?
I want them to figure out how to
their own demise. Okay.
Yes.
Good luck with that one.
And see, it'll never happen. And see, that's
the problem.
That's the problem. And see, because I'm thinking,
so I think there should be a way where average, everyday, non-political citizens could have a pathway to introduce bills and allow the electorate to vote on it.
Because the legislator, like for example, in California, it's a super majority. The legislator is wacky. You know that. Legislator is wacky. They're going to do whatever they want to do. And then you have a guy like Governor Newsom who was a lieutenant governor, and then he was a mayor, and then this guy's been in politics in so many leading positions for so long. There should be a rule. It's like, oh, wait, you already held a governorship? That means you can't hold this office. You can't. You got to wait 10 years. You got to wait 5 years. Oh, you've been in Congress for 2 terms. You've got to get out. I think if they're different positions, so like, let's say a person was in the city council, then they became an assembly person, and then they became a mayor, and then they became a governor, and then they became House, and then Senate, and then president. I think there should be a pathway of ascension as long as your representation changes, because, like when we were young in our respective businesses, we rose up the ranks much more quickly than our counterparts because we were ambitious, intelligent, hardworking. And I think people like that in life should be rewarded. So I don't think it should be any different in politics, but I think, I agree that there definitely needs to be campaign limits. And if a person is, if you've been in one position for more than X number of years, whether it's 5, 10, or whatever, I don't think it should ever be more than 10. We need new blood. We need somebody else. And there should be like an apprenticeship type of thing where, a person's rising up through the ranks, and the person that's in that occupying seat helps that person understand the comings and goings of being a politician the right way. And unfortunately, people aren't going to vote against their own demise, man. So I don't see it that way, Len.
Interesting.
I don't see it that way, because here's my biggest problem with what you just said.
Okay.
As soon as you give a ladder of ascension in politics, it becomes a career. And you can't have a ladder of ascension. You can't say one day I'm a congressperson, but I aspire to be the president. You can't do that, because now you become a career politician. I think, and then educating people. Here's the thing. I think people need to get into political positions and be as raw and unfiltered as they possibly can. That's why I actually like Fetterman. And that's why most of the political establishment hates him, because he votes knee jerk. He votes for example, if you got elected tomorrow, I don't know what district you're in or whatever, right? I don't know what problems you face besides the fact that you live in California. Okay. But let's say for a second that you got voted into a position that has influence in your district or whatever. Okay. You would immediately vote, and you don't have donors, none of that stuff. You ran a vote campaign.
My conscience. Yes.
Yes, exactly. You would immediately start voting based on what you feel right now about what's going on in your community. So for example, you would start going, dude, we need to figure out the homeless thing, like a Spencer Pratt. Dude, I just need to go in there and figure out X, Y, Z, ABC. And you'd get in on those topics and you'd be very pragmatic and very effective about it. But the fact that you're going in there and you got to get training and you become a politician, there shouldn't be any, you got to act like a politician. Because if you go back to the olden days, I know it's such a weird word, Ben Franklin was part-time. You know what I mean? These guys came in and out as to be public servants, right? Because they virtue signal. We're public servants. No, you're not. You're not public servants anymore. You are career. This is a career for you. So I think you need to eliminate the monetary gain from being a politician. And
I would agree with that part. 100%,
start there at least, so that it's not like you can ascend. Because the fact that someone like AOC is a millionaire now is just astonishing to me. It's just wild to me. How does that happen? Len, she became a millionaire faster than you and I. How? How on God's green earth this is possible, Len? You and I both know this. It's impossible. But because of the construct of how our political system has gotten so far, you know what, Len, why didn't our founding fathers think of term limits? Like, I always get troubled there.
For president.
Did they really?
For president.
Well, yeah, president.
Because George Washington had an opportunity to run.
He did, and he turned it down. He turned it down.
That was wise.
But term limits just on those, but term limits on the
Congress.
Maybe, maybe they just didn't see that going that far. But they thought so far ahead in everything else. So I juggle that in my mind because I'm not in the camp, by the way, that goes, oh, they're outdated.
What do you think about judges? Do you think judges should have term limits, or do you think that should be a lifetime appointment? Which is the perfect segue to our next topic, by the way.
Judges should have term limits as well.
You think so? Okay.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
I think the term could be longer because they're not necessarily bought. They have to abide by the law. So I could see, 20 years, maybe even 25.
Judges should have longer term limits, but they should still have term limits, because here's the argument to that. If you and I are always going to have a nostalgia to the way we grew up, right? Mm-hmm. Or the way it was for us, we're going to have an affinity for that nostalgia. So that means innately we're going to lean bias that way. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, you might like things that are like, bring back the comedy of the 80s and the 90s, because everybody's too sensitive now. That's why comedy sucks now. You can't
everybody knows 90s hip hop is the best hip hop.
Well, of course. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a channel called Fly on Sirius XM that plays only 90s and early before 2008, stuff. So everybody knows that. Right.
But you get what I mean? Say that tongue in cheek, because the whole nostalgia idea. Yeah, I agree with you. That's a very good point.
So you're always gonna have an affinity towards that way of living. Like, it's not back in my day. It was back in your day. There was bad atrocities happening too. Mm-hmm. Like, there wasn't. No doubt about it. We don't need to lose sight of that. But yeah, I definitely think that we need to get the money. The money, the monetary, it's plain. You shouldn't be able to make money in Congress or Senate. You just shouldn't. You should not be able to.
Because then you're really a public servant. Like, like, I have no issue with having like a home allowance and a car allowance, where like it's a congressional house, and you can get your car where you're doing the work of. Then
you just made me think of something, Len. Make it just write-offs, just like it is for an S corp or a self-employed person. Dude,
exactly.
On my car, because I was at Congress, my cell phone. Bro, we shouldn't be paying for this crap for people.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
You should be violent, and see, that maybe is the problem, right? Because it's human nature we're dealing with. Let me ask you this question: because we compensate them and give them a salary and give them health benefits and everything like it's a job, then they're going to start treating it like that.
It's a job for them.
It's a job for them. So you're good. So the human nature side of it is that, I'm going to come here, because here's the thing.
Like, where else am I going to make this kind of money and have these kind of benefits?
You no longer feel like you're volunteering anymore, because you're getting paid so much to do it.
They're not volunteering anymore. It's really
so that's not in your heart anymore. See, when people volunteer and they don't do it for the money, there's a different level of bravado and energy and fervor that goes into that project.
You're not beholden to anybody else for self-preservation.
Len, if you vote on the CHIPS Act, I'll build my data center in your district over Larry's down the street.
That's right. Exactly.
You can see that. I'm sorry, Len. I'm not.
It just opens itself up for corruption, 100%.
Anyways, but
I'm with you,
Len. That's why these AI companies are wanting to be snuffed now, because these politicians know that AI is going to figure out a way to get rid of them all. Think about it, Len. We talk about jobs, right? We talk about jobs being replaced by AI. What's going to happen when we replace? What makes you think we can't replace like, for example, lawyers are terrified, right? Because they're saying, "Oh my God, all these paralegals and stuff are going to go out of business because of AI," right? Like, who needs them right now? Wait a minute. How come no one's ever stopped and thought about, do we really need these politicians then? Len, do we really need a politician anymore? Do we really need a politician? Do we really need all of these politicians? Because what would we rather have? I mean,
well,
anyways, I'm going real wild there with that one.
That was a left turn, because the whole system of democracy and
we're gonna put machines in charge.
Yeah. So with that being said, Chris, any parting words before we wrap up?
Have a killer week, everybody. Like, subscribe. If you like this, drop a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Len? See you on the next one, sir.
Always a pleasure.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Family Office.